There's no doubt that this is a unique sight, a fully airworthy reproduction of a World War I Royal Aircraft Factory F.E.2b aircraft about to take to the air over 100 years since the type first entered service in May 1915. At the time of this flight, this was the only airworthy example of this type of aircraft in the world. The Sopwith Triplane, shown here escorting the F.E.2b, was introduced into service almost 18 months after the F.E. in December 1916. While the F.E. was a lumbering giant, it still outlived the triplane in service. By late 1917, most triplanes had been withdrawn from British service and were being used as advanced trainers only. Conversely, the F.E.2 found a second life as a relatively successful tactical night bomber and was used in this role up until the end of the war in November 1918. The F.E. was originally developed as a fighter aircraft, with the engine and propeller at the rear of the fuselage nacelle because the British had not yet developed an interrupter mechanism to allow a machine gun to fire through the propeller arc. Placing the prop at the rear of the aircraft ensured that the gunner had an excellent all-round field of fire and was not at risk of shooting off his own propeller blades. Along with the single-seat DH-2 pusher and the Newport N11, the F.E.2 was instrumental in ending the Fokker Scourge that had seen the German air service establish a measure of air superiority on the Western Front from the late summer of 1915 to the following spring. The large front cockpit and the two Lewis machine guns mounted on the aircraft provided the type with a useful but dangerous setup for the gunner. American ace Frederick Libby, who served as an F.E.2b observer in 1916, had this to say:
"All of you from the knees up was exposed to the elements. There was no belt to hold you. Only your grip on the gun and the sides of the nacelle stood between you and eternity." Toward the front of the nacelle was a hollow steel rod with a swivel mount, to which the gun was anchored. This gun covered a huge field of fire forward. Between the observer and the pilot, a second gun was mounted, for firing over the F.E.2b's upper wing to protect the aircraft from rear attack. Adjusting and shooting this gun required that you stand right up out of the nacelle with your feet on the nacelle coaming. You had nothing to worry about except being blown out of the aircraft by the blast of air or tossed out bodily if the pilot made a wrong move. There were no parachutes and no belts. No wonder they needed observers.
As it turned out, Fred Libby became the first American to shoot down an enemy aircraft while flying with the Royal Flying Corps, doing so from the front seat of an F.E.2b. Later, a British squadron commander praised Libby for his instinctive gun control.
"A good flyer does things instinctively. The main thing you didn't freeze when in trouble but came up shooting. An observer in our F.E.2b does everything but fly the plane. It is the toughest job in the air today."
Another Flying Corps F.E.2b crew, Lieutenants Lionel Morris and Tom Rees, made history on September 17, 1916, when they were shot down by a young German pilot named Manfred von Richthofen. This aircraft became the first of the Red Baron's victories, and he would eventually go on to shoot down a further 79 aircraft, before himself being killed in April 1918. A pilot with the vintage Aviator had this to say about flying the F.E.2.
At first, I had no idea why there would be straps inside a jacket, and my inexperienced gunner obviously had no idea what he was in for on that first flight. As we climbed for altitude, my observer attempted to stand and reach for the rear-facing gun. In an instant, he inflated like a balloon. Funny at first, but then the thought of him being pulled over the low sides of the front cockpit became very real. These RFC leather coats have straps inside that wrap around your legs to keep your coat from blowing open in the wind. Even the gunner's gloves are a cross between gloves and mittens. They have a small fur-lined mitten part that folds over the fingers to add even more warmth when you don't need your fingers free for firing a gun. Flying any open cockpit airplane in the dead of winter wouldn't be much fun. I think people often forget the war was fought even in the winter and sometimes at altitudes of 10,000 feet or more. The bone-chilling temperatures must have been excruciating. Pilot and gunner certainly had to work as a team. The pilot relied on the gunner to keep a lookout behind, and the gunner relied on the pilot to help position the airplane to allow a shot to be taken. I was also amazed at how much influence on the airplane the gunner has. In level flight, he can almost steer the airplane with his body position. You also notice how teamwork would be paramount for FE2 crews. If the pilot wasn't cognizant of the gunner's position and what he was trying to do, the pilot could easily throw the gunner around the front cockpit recklessly while maneuvering haphazardly.
Click the Join button to become a member of our channel and to gain access to our ever-increasing playlist of exclusive members-only videos. It only costs a couple of dollars a month, and you'll be helping us to continue to produce this material for your enjoyment. For just a couple of dollars more, you can also subscribe to our full streaming video channel at historicalmachines.tv, which features full-length documentary programs not available here on YouTube.